Welcome to Legacy Cast, your source for hearing from top influencers, industry experts, and successful business owners who are telling their unique story about life, values, goals, business strategies, and the various causes they are so passionate about. Future generations will come to be impacted by what is happening today, whether positive or negative, and our mission is to focus on what is going to affect change for the better. Hosted each weekday by James Snow, a former U.S. Army combat medic, now founder and principal advisor of James Advisors Group, a full-service financial planning firm in North Texas. This is Legacy Cast. Welcome to the program today, Legacy Cast listeners. This is your host, James Snow, coming to you from North Texas. We have another great, interesting veteran buddy that's going to be a guest today, Glenn Banton. You probably have heard of him from Operation Supply Drop, but he's got a lot of other things going that he's doing as well. So, we want to be able to talk to him today, and certainly appreciate him taking time out of his extremely busy schedule, running a business and being part of multiple boards and committees and what have you. So, Glenn, welcome to the program today. But
hey, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's we're here in North Texas. We had a little bit of rain over the evening, which was a surprise because up until today it's been 110, 120, 130, something like that. It's kind of like being in the sandbox again. It's sort of rough over here. So. I guess you have better weather where you're at.
Hey, I'm just south of y'all, so I'm off to the west of Austin in Central Texas. So we've been getting the rain dumped on us as well, and certainly this time of year we need it. Helps keep the watering bills down around the property.
Yeah, and you got more humidity than we have. So, man,
yeah, okay.
Those mosquitoes that carry away your dog and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it's good. It's always nice to speak to a fellow. I'm an honorary Texan. I've been in Texas the majority of my life, but it's always nice to speak to folks in this great state.
Yep. Yeah, we kind of think different and act different and believe differently here in Texas. So
that's the truth.
So here on Legacy Cast, like I always tell the listeners and the guests that come on, we talk about legacy, but it's kind of a broad subject because it's really more about a lifestyle. It's the way that you're living. It's not just finance, but it's also educational, societal, what have you. What the things that you're doing in your life that's going to affect change for other people, and it's going to create as the analogy goes, ripples in the pond when you throw a pebble into it. It's kind of like that with legacy, that the things you're doing today are going to resonate into the next multiple generations. And I myself find it very important that we need to do things very deliberately and very intentionally because we are going to affect other people either for the good or for the bad, and so we have to be mindful of that. But when you're thinking, Glenn, of legacy in your particular instance, what comes to mind?
Mainly, in mine, I think it might be with a lot of people, especially fathers. It's my kids. I've got two kids. I've got a high school daughter and a fifth grade son. And especially in today's time where, again, we're arguably the most distracted we've ever been. We have all these fantastic technological advancements and we're hyper connected, but arguably the most antisocial in human history. And you look at all these, again, great things, these double-edged swords, and I try to figure out, what can I do to make things better, not just for my kids, but also encourage them to understand a lot of the underlying principles that drive me every single day. It's not about, being on social media all the time. It's not about, shallow relationships that they or, their peer group might not even understand. It's about getting to know a core group of people through, shared values and shared experiences. And so when it comes to legacy, it's more about what am I going to leave behind as far as, again, philosophy and beliefs and values that's going to allow other people to be successful in their life.
Yeah, well put. And yeah, I think that at the core, that really is what it should be about. It's not, like I always tell people, just because I'm in finance doesn't mean that money is the only part of legacy.
Mhm.
And that may be the vehicle that helps you carry your story, but it's not the story itself.
Mhm.
That's just a vehicle, and there has to be something greater in that. There has to be a reason behind everything. And so, what is the reason that people are doing things? So I really appreciate the way that you were putting that, because that kind of brings into scope, how you're looking at the big picture.
Mhm.
Do you feel like
Absolutely.
it's do you feel it's like it's an important consideration that each person, they're listening today, that they really spend some time and energy to, on a daily basis, even to consider, what are they doing? How is it going to impact uh, into that legacy concept?
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of it, if you really think about it, you and I are talking about it as the word legacy, but really is my time valuable? What's the ROI on my time? I mean, those are the other ways to look at it,
Right.
because if you're not doing something that is in fact valuable, you can't leave a legacy. And so, for
Mm-hmm.
myself on a daily basis, and mind you, my ADD has me kind of, all over the place all the time with all these, my hands in so many cookie jars, you'd think I'm in a bakery, but it's understanding each action and how that impacts another person.
Sure.
If I look at kind of that drive behind things, it is faith driven. I truly believe, we're put here to serve others in varying capacities with the gifts
Mm-hmm.
that we've been bestowed. And it's tough because, again, there's only 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days in a year. And we have all these great, opportunities, people. But how do you choose? I think that's really the hard part, is where do you focus your time? And every single day, within, there's all these different, plans, I guess you can follow, but it's, even taking some time to, whether it's, pray, read the Bible, meditate, spend time in nature, depending upon, where your
Mm-hmm.
mindset is at, taking
Right.
that introspective time to say, what am I going to do today that is going to, make a mark on the world, if you will, so that I can make somebody else's life better and thus leave my legacy.
Yeah, and yeah, you pointed out something there that actually is something that I personally do each day. Is, when I start my morning, is thinking, who's going to come into my circle today that I can help. And that's part of my prayer and meditation each morning, is for me to have those abilities to help and bless the next person that comes into my circle.
Absolutely.
And so it helps me to start my morning, and the rest of the day in a very good position, because it takes we tend to be control freaks sometimes as entrepreneurs. I know that I am very much, by nature, a control freak. Uh, but it helps kind of take that control from me and sort of push away a little bit, so that I can handle things better. Because
Absolutely.
if I'm trying to control the needle so much, then I end up pushing it too far to the left or too far to the right, and can end up messing things up. So
Interesting. Yeah,
it's a good
no.
way to start the morning.
Well, and it's even within that, and interesting enough. So, as I'd mentioned to you, I'm a civilian that's been in the veteran space
Mhm.
for 15, 20 years at this point, and certainly what I've picked up on, and I think it's where a lot of the connectivity comes, is a lot of the underlying mentalities and philosophies from there. So I've learned force multiplying has always been, my favorite concept in business or even in personal life,
Mhm.
about, again, making a mark, because there's only so much that you and I can do individually. It's how do we cultivate that next layer of people to, again, force multiply
Mhm.
this philosophy. And then secondary to that, and it's the learning to let go and delegate. It's
Yep.
commander's intent. That's where being the CEO of OSD and also an executive at a bunch of other organizations, my mentors, my peers have really said, "Hey, Glenn, you need to understand commander's intent. Your job is to lay out the big picture vision based upon what your wisdom, and then help cultivate the people that will help execute that on a day-to-day basis." And so it's interesting to play around with those, because you still, obviously, you and I have our businesses we work in, and then there's the personal
Mhm.
side. And I can't help it. Every once in a while I look at my calendar, and the next week I have 18, mentorship calls. And that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
I love helping people, but at the same time I'm going, is that the best use of my time? Now, individual one-to-one, it
Mhm.
absolutely is. is. Is it from the big picture of truly making a bigger mark? I don't know. And that's really where my daily challenge comes down to, that planning of how do we make sure and pay the bills, impact some people, take care of my family, take care of myself, and then, wake up and do it again the next day.
Yeah. So that kind of leads me to the next part of this is, how do you, from a business standpoint, correlate, this kind of a mindset of doing things deliberately so that it goes into that bigger picture? How do you correlate that into your business?
So it's always changing. I mean, macro level is trying to figure out how to balance, and it's not, I don't believe in the whole concept of work-life balance. And so I'd say I would preface any answer here by leading with, it's this concept. When a lot of people see me, they say, "Oh man, you wear so many different hats." And I used to sort of buy into that. And then I realized a couple of years ago, I said, no, I don't wear lots of hats. I wear one hat. I'm the same guy that shows up no matter what I'm doing, whether it's my nonprofit stuff, it's the for-profit stuff, it's community stuff, it's all the same. And so once you have that as a premise to your being in existence every single day, it starts to become a little bit easier, because you start determining, well, it's about relationship building first and foremost. Sure. Now, those relationships might lead a bunch of different paths. That maybe it's becoming a volunteer, skilled leader. Maybe it's a donor. Maybe it's a, somebody that's doing business within, my for-profit stuff. But it has to start somewhere. And so, really, what I've done is figured out, how do I look at things in increments of time and task it down to, executing against a bigger vision. All that being said, what I've been a big fan of, especially this year, and implemented it a few times formally, is the concept of EOS. So that's anybody's listening, go check out at eosworldwide.com. It's the same mentality that stems from the book Traction, which many people that are listening, I'm sure, have actually read. And a couple unique elements within that. And it's an organizational philosophy that you can apply even to a sole proprietorship if you wanted to. But it looks at accountabilities first and foremost, is how you describe roles, and so even down to myself. And then it looks at goal setting from that 10, 3, 1 year perspective, but then it boils it down to quarters. And a lot of that has some psychology behind it, but it's realizing that typically we can't focus on something for more than 90 days at a time. Take that out to scale with a large organization, and you can see why many kind of are all over the place. But then even within that, it takes this concept of rocks. So your big focus projects, and really uses those as an anchor to determine what your day-to-day looks like. And so that's what I've had to do, because there's, it seems like there are all these different balls in the air, and, before really formalizing, how do you focus? How do you then measure success? It was a constant struggle. It was a moving target every single day. And now I'm able to at least a little bit more coherently say, all right, well, I moved the needle against this specific rock or this project that needs to get done this quarter. And then really the success metric is, so long as we're executing on 80% or more of those rocks, we will be the best at what we do. That will happen. And so that's at least how I do my best. But, I'm sure 60 days from now, like I said, my ADD and attention span will say, let's, not blow up the bigger picture of EOS, but I'll do some micro thing in there to completely, mix it up, just because, I don't know, I think I enjoy controlled chaos.
Yeah, I can kind of relate with some of those pieces too, because, I had that shiny object syndrome, that some people have. And so, I'll be working on a task, and you have these other things around you that I can very easily distract myself with. So, having that structure is so important to kind of keep my focus, because otherwise, my distraction will be horrible.
Absolutely.
So, if you're looking at your business from the CEO standpoint, are there still a few things that maybe keep you up at night about it?
It's the longer term. So let's use the OSD. We'll focus on that in an example. I mean, we've been around as an organization for 8 years. We are a global veteran support ecosystem. We're now classified as chapter based, I would say. We've had massive growth over the past 3 to 5 years. years, like legitimate exponential growth, especially if you look at the underlying metrics of military community members served,